Hello, my name is Justin Call. I'm the president of Broomstick Monkey Games, and what you're about to view now is a tutorial for how to set up your two-player board for Imperial Harvest. So every copy of Imperial Harvest comes with a collection of garden tiles, which I'm going to move out here in the center. You've got your square ones, you've got your rectangular ones, and you've got your moat tiles. And then, of course, you've got your other various pieces, which we'll get into. Before we begin, though, I want to point out that all of these instructions can be found in the rulebook on page 16 for your setup manual. We're going to go over all these steps in detail as quickly as possible. And you'll also notice at the end of the setup manual, it gives you examples of other ways to set up your two-player board. There are lots of ways to set up a board for Imperial Harvest. This is the most basic way that we suggest. It's the typical way that we play tested most of our games. So it's the one I'm going to show to you now. It's also the one that you can find on your cloth mat that comes in the game. If you see here, this is what we're going to be setting up. It's a cloth mat. You've got a moat in the center. This is a symmetrical board, which we're going to be talking about in one of our other videos, which you can use for a quick setup. Or for shifting your board around. If you want to set up your board on top of the cloth mat, you can do that. But let's just jump right into it, shall we? So we've got our 4 camp tiles over here. We're going to leave those off to the side. We're going to quickly drop in our 4 square tiles. And then use the moats to frame those. How these tiles are set up does not matter, because you've got the tiles you see are double-sided. So however you choose to orient them, rotate them, turn them, it's going to create a unique board setup each time you play the game, which is part of the fun. Setting up the board, I think, is one of the fun things as well. If you want to do something more tactical once you've played the game a lot, you can actually take turns placing garden tiles. You want to decide ahead of time how you want to frame the board and how you want it to look. But then you can take turns picking which tiles are going to go where and how you're going to flip them. And then that could change strategically how the game is played. But not very much. So that's why I suggest random setups are quick, they're fun, and they take away a lot of the stress of trying to be tactical the entire time you're playing this game. Because let's face it, this is a very tactical game, and so putting too much concern over how the board is set up early in the game might take away from some of that more whimsical enjoyment that we try to include in the game. So the next thing we're going to do, we're not going to place our character camps yet. When I was looking at these here, we're going to do our bridge placement. This is important because when you place your bridges, that's going to heavily influence where you're going to choose to place your camps. So bridges are placed first. The Imperial servants take one bridge and they will place it wherever they like. And assuming that, let's say they want to place their character camp over here because it's kind of open, there aren't any hedges blocking their camp, as opposed to over here you've got a hedge here and you're going to have to walk here to get some strawberries and go around that hedge. So that might be bad. This doesn't look too good either. These are okay. This is probably the best one. So let's assume they want to camp over here. So they're just going to place this bridge right here. Oh, excuse me, right there. And then the Northern Raiders are going to take 2 bridges and place those. And for them, they're going to be left with some of the worst spots typically after the best spots taken. So they're going to try and make the best of a bad situation. And in this case, or they could try and sabotage this guy's camp. So let's try and even things out a bit. So if I'm this camp, this gives me, let's do that. All right, and then the last bridge will be placed by the Imperial servants. So they're going to place their bridge here. All right, so the Imperial servants, as I mentioned before, they can place either of their 2 camps. They're probably going to place this camp first, the character camp, because it's the most important one. It's going to determine how close you are starting to a hedge when you place your characters. And then rather than placing their second strawberry camp, the Northern Raiders will place their camps. And well, let's just randomize this. It doesn't matter too much. And then that leaves the Imperial servants to place their camp here. The next thing you're going to want to do, you could do, in the rule book it says to put the strawberries on first. It really doesn't matter when the strawberries are placed because they're always going to be placed in the same place. When you're setting up a board, the outside perimeter tiles, you're going to place the strawberries in the middle of the outside perimeter. So not here, but here. And when you do that, it's going to form sort of a soft polyhedric circle. And if instead of having character camps in the corners, we actually had square garden tiles, then I would continue this sort of circular shape by placing a strawberry here, which would continue that curve and make it a bit more soft. But since we don't have garden tiles here and they're in the center, we're going to end up placing our strawberries in the center in a group. And the last two strawberries, there's two more strawberries you want to place. Before you can place those strawberries, though, you need to place your hydras. Those are going to be placed closest to the character camps. So in this situation, closest to the strawberry camps. In this situation, I placed both of the strawberry camps up top. They could have been diagonally opposed to each other, but in this scenario, they're both far away. And so we're going to take our final two strawberries. These are going to be placed closest to the hydras in the center of the board. So that encourages people, oh, excuse me, I got these two pieces mixed up here. All right, there we go. So now we've got our full circle, and in the center we've got basically a smaller circle, and then the final two strawberries are placed close to the hydras in the strawberry camps so as to encourage a more exciting end game. It encourages players to leave their character camps where they're going to be starting and head out into the magical garden maze and collect those magic strawberries. So we've got the board essentially set up right now. The only thing left to do is set up our characters. You pick your 3 archetypes and pick the associated character pieces, place them on your board. You can place them anywhere in your camp. The icon that's located in the corner, that's not relevant to where you choose to place your characters. You could have this rotated this way, and you could place a character on top of that icon if you wanted. It really doesn't matter. This entire area can be navigated. And if it's important to your characters, if you have a line of sight, you're going to want to choose how to orient your arrows, because line of sight may become a factor in affecting other characters with your abilities. If during the course of setup you do happen to run into a scenario where you have hedges blocking an entire wall, that's okay. Remember, you're doing this before you've placed your character camps. You're doing this before you've drafted your characters and your team. So tactically, you can plan around that if you happen to be close to an area where it's completely walled off, which is rare. But if that did happen, you're going to want to draft characters that are either ethereal, which means they can go over hedges, or another character that has an ethereal-like ability, like the sorceress who can pass through hedges in certain scenarios using on the advanced side. Basilisk, I think, can also move through hedges. The barbarian can chop through hedges. So there's a lot of different characters. Even the monk can throw people over hedges. So there's a lot of options for getting around obstacles during a game of Imperial Harvest. So you need to draft your team based on the obstacles that you're going to face. So in this scenario, we've got our board set up. You're going to draft your characters, place your character tokens, and you're ready to go. That's a 2-player setup.